Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, Kim Seltzer, a dating and makeover expert, where I will help you build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. Do you ever see an average man with a beautiful, high-quality woman and wonder, what does he have that she sees in him? And it often surprises men when they hear about what really attracts women to men. Here's the thing, like many men have been raised with this kind of false belief that they should always appear detached, strong, cool, unemotional, or risk being known as weak. And conversely, many nice guys, and I see this happen too, who often get put in the friend zone, think that, well, women just want assholes or they like assholes and give up and saying, well, I'm not going to be one of those guys. But the truth is, that women love nice guys. They really do, who are able to deeply connect on an emotional level and give them a sense of feeling seen. But there has to be some other qualities mixed in with that that give women a sense of security, safety, and presence. There was a guy I was working with who fell into the friend zone, and he didn't have a lot of dating experience growing up. He got married pretty much for the first woman that liked him. They stayed married for over 10 years and then divorced, only to find himself thrusted yet again into the dating world later in life. And guess what? He was still stuck in the friend zone, right? Like things hadn't changed much in ways of how he dated because he really never dated. And the reality is that he was the quintessential nice guy, right? Who didn't really go after the women he liked and let the women lead in most of the dating situations, as he had this limiting belief that he should just date women who liked him. And he wore, like very conservative clothes. He even had a stylist before working with me, but it was very safe. I will say that in the way of his style. He worked in tech, so his first impressions were a bit conservative, dry, and well, boring. And his analytical brain and tendency to overthink things made dates methodical and feeling like an interview. And he made himself too available. And he appeared a little anxious, right, to follow up with every woman he met. So the first thing we needed to do was fix his marketing of himself. And while he had some good clothes, I had to put some more edge in it, right? With some sexier pictures of himself. He had to practice the art of flirting and creating more playfulness and sexual tension in his interactions with women. And he worked on his self-confidence overall, and that helped him lead with more spontaneity, humor, charisma, and really, at the end of the day, it was more of an abundance mindset. By the end of his coaching cycle with me, he was dating up a storm. He was approaching women everywhere. He couldn't believe like some of the quality women he was even approaching. And he did it with confidence and leadership that he never had done before. And even like women started finding him more attractive. So he no longer had that scarcity mindset, but more of an abundance one as he realized his value and worth. Masculine energy is directional energy. And we women, we love that. I'll just say that. And with me today, a great friend and cohort who is going to help me talk more about the most important things that women will always be attracted to so that you'll save time, money, and frustration and headaches to try to deeply engage that woman that you're trying to attract on more of an emotional level. And women, you'll want to listen to this too, because you're going to hear the type of man that is also right for you. So as an owner of Tripp Advice, and along with the help of his team, he's helped thousands of men around the world excel in their love lives by showing them how to develop confidence with tested and proven techniques to make women curious and attracted. He's helped even the most awkward, shyest, and introverted men evolve to their most badass selves. Welcome, Tripp Kramer.
Well, thanks for having me, Kim.
Oh, well, you're welcome. Finally, we do
I
this.
know.
It's so funny because you and I have known each other for a very long time, and it's been fun even to see you and I evolve, right? Like in the way that we help people and that kind of thing. But I mean, I didn't do your bio justice, so I mean, you go ahead and introduce yourself because I don't remember really your personal journey in getting here. To be honest, I was thinking about that.
Yeah, totally. No, I can share that with you. I just want to say this. First of all, so excited to be on your podcast because we're friends too. And it's
I know.
fun to just chat with a friend as much as it's also business. And I'm just so happy to be here. So thank you for having me. And um, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, that it just not only is it cool to see each other evolve, but it's really cool that you're still in the industry and I'm still in
Mm,
the industry. And there's something, I don't know, to me, I don't know what it is. Like there's something comforting about that. Like I
yeah.
don't ever like to, even though people might think like, oh, but who cares? It's your competition. Wouldn't you want them? It's like, not really. Like I kind of want everyone to be doing this and sticking with it. It's kind of makes me sad. It's like, oh, you stopped? Like, where did you go? So it's cool to see you not just continue, but flourish in what you're doing. And this podcast is awesome. And I'm so happy to be here. So just wanted to say that.
Oh, thank you. No, and it's kind of like meta to what we're talking about, just at an emotional level, like being such good friends and supporting each other along the way. It does take a village, and I never see it as static. I think that we all come from that place of abundance, like we were saying, in
Yeah.
ways of like how we even help people.
Yeah, totally, totally. Well, yeah, I've been helping people since 2011. So that's when I officially called myself a coach. So I've been doing it for 11 years now. And how I got started in it is basically I'm the person who I, well, the person who I was is the person that I help today,
Yeah.
right? And my team helps today. So I was a nice Jewish boy from Chicago
You
who
still are,
didn't.
by the way, just
I
just
guess
FYI.
I am still a nice Jewish boy from Chicago. I'm just saying that because, but for all of you guys listening, Kim's also from Chicago. We met in LA, funny enough. So that was just that connection that we had. But anyway,
Right.
um, I was the typical nice guy, didn't know how to flirt with women, build tension with women, got in the friend zone more times than I'd love to admit in my whole life up until about 23, 24 years old, and just didn't understand how women thought and how to understand what it means to be an abundant mindset and how to look at myself as a guy who has value and self-esteem. And so all this caused a lot of dating problems for me. And then in my early 20s, I started to figure out how to solve those issues and become a guy that can actually date women that I wanted to date and find relationships that I wanted to find and not settle, because previous to that, I was in a lot of crappy relationships and just bad dating experiences. And so solving that issue on my own, it took me a few years to do. I just got really obsessed with the idea of helping other guys do the same thing. So I work primarily with men because that's just, that's who I was in terms of like what the problem was. And I feel like, well, I could solve that for men because I feel like I solved it. And I had that confidence behind, well, if I can solve it, because I put a lot of work into it, I'm sure I can help other guys solve it. So that's when I started Tripp Advice. And that was, yeah, 2011. And ever since then, I've been just putting out a lot of content online to promote Trip Advice and our coaching program that helps men. So I've got a YouTube channel and a podcast of my own, as well as, just videos on TikTok and Instagram and all over. And so a lot of people find me that way, as well as being guests on podcasts like this, and give dating advice to guys, and then, you know, get them to the point where they have girlfriends, they're losing their virginity if that's an issue with them, they're becoming more confident. And we have a whole team of coaches that help guys get to that point. So I've boiled it down to my own formulas and techniques so it's easy for guys to learn and have a dating life where they can be proud. And then ultimately with that, and I'm sure you've seen this, Kim, is that like something magical happens when a guy solves dating, right?
Uh,
That
so true. Yes.
what have you found?
Yeah, I mean, and the thing, and maybe you can share a little bit about your journey and then how you help guys with this, but when you see that thing happen where it clicks, like that aha moment where they realize it, and really to me it's this is the empowerment where they not focus on the woman anymore, but they really start focusing on them. Because so many times, at least a lot of the guys that I work with, they're worried so much of how they're coming across, saying the right thing. They're in their head, they're over analyzing. They're trying to, like, please her, or do something else outside themselves. But when they authentically start, like, looking at themselves and coming from a place of self-worth, and it clicks and they start dating up a storm, and you see their sexy confidence rise, like, there's nothing like it. And especially when they
Yeah.
walk out of, like, a dressing room and they walk a little taller, and you and I even did a little bit of that. Remember that?
Yeah, of course. I remember that day
Oh my
so
god.
well. I think I grew out of some of those clothes, or just, they
That
got
was a
old. So
while
like,
ago.
it
Yeah,
was a while ago, so I don't have those anymore. That's probably like 8 years ago. But I remember every single item. I could paint a picture of every single item that we purchased because, well, first of all, that was the first time I ever spent real money on myself in the clothing department.
I totally remember that.
Like,
Yeah,
now it would be like, oh yeah, you spend $100 on a button down, like no big deal. That's what a
totally.
nice button down costs. But like, to me, spending $100 on a Hugo Boss button down that you helped me find, that was like, whoa. But it was not in that moment I realized, you helped me realize that this this is what nice clothes cost. And there's a reason for that. First of all, it looked good, it fit good, and it felt really good, like a quality of material. And then the same thing with the shoes that we got and the sport coat that I got. It was an amazing day. I send as many of my clients as I can to you to help with their fashion. I think I do a good job, but not compared to you. And it is such an amazing experience when you can dress yourself properly and just look awesome and you feel awesome. And something I was going to say earlier too is what happens is when you start to feel awesome with women,
Yeah.
and you look good because you put yourself in new clothes, this confidence spreads like wildfire throughout
Mm,
all the different areas of your life, right? So you become
totally.
more confident. I found this with myself personally. So I had this, my clients have this. You just do better at work. You can get promotions and raises at work because you're just feeling better. Or maybe you decide to quit and get a job that you feel that's more suited for you because you just start to build self-esteem. And I read this in a great book called The Six Pillars of Self-Esteem. The definition of self-esteem
Mm,
that this guy Nathaniel Brandon says is someone who feels they deserve happiness. Like, that's what self-esteem is. And that's so powerful because it's like, if you build, let's say a lot of guys will, come into this whole idea of, oh, I want to get better with women in dating, and they build confidence and self-esteem through that. Well, then it's like, well, they like themselves. So they want to be happy in all the different areas. This is why self-esteem is so cool, because then you want to fix everything. Or you want to work out more. You want to be healthy. You want to work on the way you dress. You want to work on your career. You want to work on the relationships with your friends and your family. And you decide, you know what? I don't want to live here anymore. I can live in a new city that I actually really enjoy, or I can find a job that's going to allow me to live the kind of lifestyle I want to live. It's amazing what can happen. And for any women listening out there, this is just a path for men because just as men, I don't know, I can't really explain it. It's probably just biological, and just how we're wired. It's like we want to be with a woman that we're attracted to. We want to be we have
mhm.
desire for women. Like, that's such a strong desire inside of us that tends to be, generally speaking, one of the first things that we're trying to solve, instead
Yeah.
of maybe like all the other areas. And so then it leads down this amazing path if you do end up solving that. So it's kind of cool.
No, it's so true. And I like, and going back to that point where, you decided to work on your style, or you decided to not become like the quintessential nice guy and get out of the friend zone. Like, what were some of the challenges, would you say, that a lot of guys have with, you know, getting over that, or even starting to change that mindset of themselves? And even like the guys that you work with.
Well, it's the problem is self-esteem can't and confidence can't really be built by just thinking your way into it. It can help. There's definitely some exercises,
Right.
I mean, and I do give some exercises that help guys kind of look at themselves a little bit differently. But then again, what if you're talking to a guy who just like doesn't have anything going for him? Like, there's nothing
Mhm.
positive he can really say about himself. What do you do? you have to take some sort of action and complete some sort of goal. And one of the ways to build self-esteem is by keeping the promises that you make to yourself. So, for
Mm,
example, let's say, what day is it? Today's Monday, right? So let's say I go, you know what, this week I'm going to work out, you know, 2 times for 15 minutes each. Okay, it's not a huge goal, it's something small. But Kim, yes or no? If I accomplish those 2 things, am I going to feel more positive about myself, neutral, or less positive?
yeah, more positive. And I love that
Right.
you're saying that. It's like those smaller, tangible things that can build your confidence in a bigger way later on.
Exactly. So it's a snowball effect.
Right.
So, a lot of people, men and women included, put a lot of pressure on themselves to maybe, I don't know, have big goals or do big things, accomplish big things, and then they make it so big that they don't do it. And then what happens is they feel worse than what before they started. And I was like, whoa,
Totally.
that was not the goal here. So one of the things that I have guys do, and of course, I'm a dating coach, so we do focus more in the dating realm than maybe working out or something like that. But we give them small tasks to accomplish for usually around the idea of talking to women in person, saying hello to a stranger, going
Yeah.
to a party, finding an event to go to, just little things they can do socially. And as long as we hold them accountable in the proper ways and they do those things, we start the process of building confidence and self-esteem. So the mindset I try to give them is I teach them not to attach their confidence and their worth to the outcome or we'll say more specifically, maybe a reaction to a woman that they might get and focus more on what they can accomplish. So we want
Yes.
self-esteem. Exactly. I'm glad you're excited. We want self-esteem to be in our control, not based on what may happen outside of us. So that's the starting point that we help guys with.
Oh my God, you're so speaking my language. Of course. And the thing is, but coming at it the way you're saying it, and I love what you said in the beginning, is you can't think your way to higher self-esteem. Right? You got to do it,
Yeah,
and
yep,
have
you got to do it.
evidence that backs that up. And that's what I think is so brilliant, because I do want to talk about, and this is more specific, I guess, with men, because women have this too, by the way, and but sometimes it manifests itself different. Are there certain, I guess, mindsets that men have in particular that trip them up? Because, like, the thinking thing, I so see in men. Like, they will overthink a lot
A lot.
about. Yeah. What are some other things that like trip them up?
Well, they they don't want to get rejected, and
Yeah.
that's their biggest fear.
Yep.
Basically, I always say if there was like a pill that could get rid of the fear of rejection completely, I don't think you and I would have a job
Right.
because
Right.
a lot of the things that we teach, it's not rocket science.
Right.
It can be really hard to do under pressure, and it can be really hard to do with low self-esteem, and it can be really hard to do when you don't have a skill set around socializing or with people. So it just makes everything 10 times harder. So it's kind of like working with guys and doing 2 things at once. So it's like, okay, we need to build a little bit of a skill set to talk and to flirt and to dress well and to communicate and be direct and be have masculine qualities, but at the same time do it without fear. So it's like it can be quite the challenge. Um, so I forgot what your question was. Oh yeah,
No.
well, what do they get tripped up over?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's basically it's that
Fear
fear
of
of rejection.
rejection.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's what most guys are concerned with, and so we have to get them out of that.
And you know what's so fascinating is that, well, and again, I do think men and women are different, but when you ask women the same question, their number one fear is rejection as well. And so people are always surprised to know that, like guys will say, "Wait, you coach women? Like what do you all have to worry about? We have to approach you." And it's like we all have these insecurities, yet I think it's just again, it manifests itself a little bit different. I just came off of doing my dating retreat, and it was co-ed, and it was amazing, like, as they were sharing their insecurities and fears and all that, they're like, "Wait, you have those too? Wait, you have those too?" And, so I think, again, like, we worry so much what other people think and feel rather than going after what we want. And that's why
Yep.
I love that you're empowering, these men to do that in very, like, small, tangible ways.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I feel like a lot of men have the world on their shoulders because,
Yeah, that's another big thing.
yeah, they have a lot. They, how do I say this? They can't just exist and be attractive to women. You know, a guy is not going to be attractive to a woman just because he's a guy. He has to bring some sort of value. You can't just be a guy
Mm.
who just sits in his parents' basement or, you know, doesn't have much of a purpose or makes a low salary, doesn't fix himself and look good and shave properly and dress well and just be, and then women are going to like them. He probably will attract zero women. And so he has to create so much value in order to get to the point where he does have more opportunities and more options. And so we have to build that from scratch. And that can be a lot for men. And also, it can be triggering to tell that to a guy. Some men know that, not other men know that. You know, some men think, well, she should just like me for me. And unfortunately, she's just not going to like you for you. There has to be other things that come with it. And some guys can't handle that and they say F it, and they're just like, I'm not going to date. And they're not, some guys are just not interested. Those are not the guys that come to us for help. But it can be a hard hitting reality for men of what it really takes to attract women. And I think that's also why our jobs exist, because there's a lot that needs to be done.
Oh my, I love that you just extracted that with men in particular, like feeling the weight is all on you. And if you're a woman listening to this, like you got to really hear that. Like I think there's so much pressure with men and it is different than a woman. And I don't think women like realize that, like all that stuff that you feel and the weight of it. Would you say to like are there certain qualities also that you teach your men to be that is attractive to a woman? Like do you break it down in certain ways?
Yeah, I mean it's the general stuff like confidence and self-esteem,
Mhm.
which we talked about. It is a person who's going to be leading, right? So a really attractive masculine trait that women really like is when a guy is a leader
Oh, I
or
love that.
right.
I just have to interject as a woman. I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
taking the lead and and you know women also like a man of status. That's a lot that takes longer to get to. That's not really a quick fix,
Mm.
you know. Building your status.
Are
Sometimes
you
men
talking
do.
about financial status or just
Um,
social status or
Status more general, but fine. Yes, there's financial status, but
right.
we'll just say that the finances is kind of also part of it. So, for
Yeah.
example, like, well, I'll just say this, and I'm sure you'll have an easy answer. Just name any man of status.
Oh gosh. Well,
Literally any man of status.
George Clooney.
There you go. Yeah, any celebrity,
Yeah, any celebrity.
any public figure,
Right.
influencer, you know. So women are very attracted to status, and we help guys a little bit with that. Again, that takes a little bit longer, but we also teach guys how to communicate to women in a way that makes them say, "Oh, okay, this guy can be a guy that I could be attracted to," or like in scientific terms, like this guy could be a potential mate, right? And so we take away some of those nice guy tendencies, and we teach guys how to we teach them how to build tension within a conversation, which is just terminology for like we teach them how to flirt
Yes.
and not just be your typical nice guy, because nice guys are very boring and that doesn't excite a woman. So some tension needs to be there. What's interesting is there's different levels of like attraction basically. And so like the top level is status. So if
Mhm.
you have status, let's say you are George Clooney's not a good example because he's obviously a very charismatic guy.
Right, right.
But I don't know. I don't have an example here, but just imagine someone who has status, but you know, in person maybe they're a little bit awkward, a little bit weird.
Mhm.
They have a little bit more room for error with that. So even if they're like not the most social person or seemingly the most confident person, a
Yeah.
woman is still going to be attracted to that person because they have status. And it's not superficial. That's just the way it is, right? So if you don't have status, which is your average dude, right? Like
Hmm.
I was just an average dude. I wasn't anyone special. So I had to learn how to be more charismatic, be more flirtatious, build more tension, and then have those masculine qualities of leadership and also have confidence, right? It's like those are the things that like I had to build, and we teach guys that they have to build to be able to get more attention from women.
Yeah. It is so valuable what you're sharing. And, and for the women, like, I think how that translates, whether you're a man or woman listening to this is super important, is that the status is part of what makes us feel safe too. The leadership and all of those things are so important for us to feel secure with you because, like, let's face it, there's so many like strong women right now and who have high status as well. Yet at the same time, women still want to be protected. We want to be cherished and loved. We still want to have that feeling of protection and security, right? No matter how old you are, it's kind of like primal, right? And when you have some of those things that you're talking about, it's not just about the money. It's not just about like looking a certain way. There are guys who are very average looking, who don't even make a ton of money, but somehow they have that sense of status and leadership that is so attractive to us. And as powerful women, like, we'll give you more of a chance even if you don't make zillions of dollars. Like, that's not the value. So I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah, totally. It just gets a little complicated because with the feminist movement and this third wave feminism,
Yeah.
men are also hearing, "Oh, we don't need a man."
Oh,
So
totally.
if we hear that, it confuses us, right? I mean, it
Yep.
doesn't confuse me. I understand what they mean when they say that. Yeah, that's true. They don't need men to survive, but I don't know. It gets a little confusing because I also think there's something else there. Like they literally are saying, not only do we not need a man to survive anymore because they have way more free equality, but it also seems like, oh, so you're cool with just like not being with men, like you just don't want to be with us at all. It
Right.
just it really is a lot of mixed signals here, and I'm trying to do my best. I'm sure you are too, to kind of clear some of those up so guys aren't so confused on that.
Honestly, this could be like a whole other podcast, right? Like, because it
I
is
know.
such a big thing.
Hmm.
And I guess, to put a button on it, also with the realization there's so much more to it, is like, even from the standpoint of approachability, I always say like men and women both have a responsibility and approachability. But like, women are getting mad that the men aren't approaching anymore. Where's all the alpha energy? Yet men are finding that women are shutting it down, right? And now, like, we're at a standstill, we're at a
Yeah.
stalemate, so no one's approaching anybody. And it starts from the beginning of the story, and it's carrying through, to your point. And I think we're just in a state of recalibration with it all. It's a
I hope
pendulum
so.
effect. I hope that we can come somewhere in the middle, because at the end of the day, even those women who claim to be, not wanting that, it deep down they still want it. They still want a partnership and a loving relationship. So it's like, how do we get there? And yeah. But going back to the qualities, like, I think it's still is true. Like, when a man values himself, I think, like, just kind of generalize it like that. That's when we value you. It really comes down to that self kind of work.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it, it always comes back to when we were saying, you said something, I think you said the word primal earlier.
Yeah.
Women want to be with a man who has qualities that show that he can help with providing. So
Yes.
every single attractive quality from a man that a woman sees relates to his ability to provide. And then on the man's side, he's attracted to he's attracted to signs or qualities of a woman that can help with having a healthy baby. I'm trying to saying this all and trying to make it as dumbed down as possible.
As caveman as possible.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
obviously I didn't come up with that. I've studied and read a lot of books on evolutionary psychology and
Oh, totally.
scientific studies that have been done, and just tons of research that has shown that this is how people are getting together. At least we'll say heterosexual men and women specifically. But it's so interesting. You got to read the book if you haven't read it yet, and anyone else out there. It's called Evolution of Desire,
Oh, cool.
and it talks about some of these things, but then it also talks about gay relationships, so lesbian and gay men, and how there's still some interesting primal things that are happening within those types of relationships that are similar to heterosexual relationships. Like they're not too much different.
Mm,
Anyway, so
interesting.
so I use a lot of the science and research in that field to help explain to men how they can be attractive to women. What's really cool is if you don't if you haven't read the book or you don't understand any of this stuff, you can immediately take away like, oh, so a man has to be rich, right? That's kind of the first thing that kind of comes to mind.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay, so his ability to provide, so that means he has to be rich. And yeah, that is part of it. Like, yes, he does actually have to have the financial means. Like, women are not going to be attracted to a guy, like I said earlier, who's sitting at home in their parents' basement who can't help create and provide for a family. But also, what's cool is, because you might think, look, well, people are getting together in their 20s and people aren't generally rich when they're in their 20s. So, how is that happening? Well, it's because women will be attracted to a man's qualities that that can be interpreted as he will eventually be able to have
Yes.
those kinds of resources. So, for example, some of these things talked about in that book are the things we've said here: confidence. Another one is really good social skills, right? Because
Hmm.
someone who can socialize and network and be part of other people, have access to other people, which help with survival, and have access to more resources. Um, what are the things? Leadership qualities, like we mentioned before, right? That there's a reason for that, and that's one of the reasons why you can even go in the opposite direction, and you can say, well, that's one of the reasons why men aren't generally attracted to a woman who has a leadership qualities. It's great that maybe women have that because it helps them get ahead in their career and their workplace, but that's not what will make a man attracted. Another thing with that is, you know, because I know you have a lot of female listeners, and it's really important for them to know is, generally speaking, their careers and their accolades are not attractive to men. It's not that they're unattractive either. They're just kind of neutral. Like a man is not going to be so into a woman because, let's say, she, I don't know, went to a really good college, went to Harvard or something like that.
Thank you for saying that. I've said that so many times, but coming from you, working with men and being a man, like I really want you to
Yes.
hear this if you're a woman.
Yeah. And listen, actually, I'll tell you a quick story. I was talking to my friend about this, and he disagreed, right? As a
Hmm.
man, he said,
Hmm.
I don't know about that. Like, I'm really attracted to a woman who's like super smart and who I know can help financially and stuff like that. I said, okay, that's fine. Yeah, I'm sure. You know what I mean? Like, I would also be attracted a little bit more to a woman who, oh, she's like super smart. She, went to a really good school, all these things. Like, yeah, they'd be like, oh, that's kind of cool. But I explained to him, and he finally agreed with me after we kind of tested things out a little bit, that it's more the icing on the cake, not so much the cake
Exactly.
itself. That's really
Yes.
getting mature. I said, okay. I said,
Yes.
and listen, I'm gonna be very blunt here, but this is just the reality and the truth.
Yeah.
I said, okay, um, let's put woman A
Hmm.
next to woman B.
Hmm.
Let's say uh, woman A is a waitress, and woman B is a doctor. Okay. Now I said to him, let's take all the qualities. Just picture your perfect woman, whatever you're attracted to. Okay. Let's say um, all that you're imagining right now is in woman A. You're the most beautiful woman to you in the world. And also like great qualities, like sweet and feminine, and you guys have things in common and all that stuff. Let's put her on category A. So again, we have woman A, waitress, super beautiful, fun to hang out with, great time. But she's not really adding much financially, is she? She's a waitress. You can only make so much as a waitress. Let's put person B.
The doctor.
The doctor, okay. And she's not as physically attractive. Maybe she's like kind of sweet and things like that, but like she's not as physically attractive. In fact, we'll even put her like, several points lower than person A, but she's a doctor. She makes 10x the amount that a waitress makes. Who are you going for? He's going for person A. So that was my little science experiment, so to speak, my little lame experiment to kind of show like, look what really mattered to you. This was more important to you. Where I would say most women would probably just go for person B, assuming person B isn't a piece of shit. Okay, that wasn't part of it, yeah, because
Right.
they probably wouldn't want to go with that person. But a waiter versus a doctor, the doctor's not as physically attractive. I don't know. What would you go for?
Well, right. And I just want to highlight it, and because I have a theory about this. I feel like we're all visual beings when it comes to attraction. And what we're talking about is the initial hit, right? Like that first state of impression, when you're first
Yeah,
like attracted to someone, right? And I believe that we both are visual, men and women, but we get attracted to something initially really fast. And with women, we'll look at a man and we'll be a little more forgiving in the
yeah,
way that
forgiving.
he's
Yeah,
right. We'll say, okay, he has a little belly, he's got a receding hairline, he's not dressed as well. However, he cares for himself, he's successful, right? And he looks like he has higher status, we will give him a chance. So we look at success. And then men look at a woman visually and determines whether he wants to have sex with her in that initial hit. So like sex versus success. And again, it goes kind of back to that primal thing, and we can't get mad at each other. It's just what happens. And what I think we're talking about is pacing. And it's not that, like, to your point, that a man doesn't enjoy an intellectual woman. Like, that is the icing on the cake, but it's the way we progress in getting to know one another because we
yeah,
all want all of that stuff. Right. And so attraction changes over time when you have an emotional connection too. And we
yeah.
know that. So, no, I love this
Totally.
conversation. So I have along those lines with the women thing. Are there certain things that we can do as women to make it easier for you men?
And what and where? When?
Well, when it comes to, that attraction piece, that initial thing,
Yeah.
like, like, because we have our piece. I'm going to take responsibility for us as
Yeah.
species.
Well, I'll say this. I want to try to be more realistic and practical. I can give a tip like, yeah, approach more guys or something, but I don't know. I just don't see that happening.
Right.
But I'll say this much. A lot of women are online dating now. I mean,
Hmm.
all of us are really, but a lot of women are discriminating way too hard on the dating apps, and they're not allowing themselves to meet guys that they would actually like. It's funny because like I say that to women sometimes and they go, so you're telling me I need to lower my standards? Da da da.
Oh
And
God.
I'm saying, no, you don't have to lower your standards. I'm actually saying you're going to find some really great guys who are not in the what we call the top 20% on the dating apps, right? So it's like filtering for guys who are over 6 feet, guys who only have really high paying, super high paying, not just like generally like super high paying jobs. Uh, you know, they're filtering really, really hard. They're not allowing themselves to actually meet great guys who might be 5'9", who also maybe doesn't make $300,000 a year, but maybe makes like $80,000 per year. And here's the thing. I'm also not telling women to have or to lower their standards at all. But women also have to be re re they have to be realistic in terms of what they might be able to attract. So a lot of women are now single into their later years because they are trying to be with men who are in the top 20th percentile. And those men aren't necessarily attracted to those women. So they might not even have the opportunity to get them. It's like, we'll say, like a guy who's 23 years old, he doesn't really have many options in the sexual marketplace because not a lot of women want a 23-year-old guy. He's just not there. Maturity level, financially, probably hasn't really like come into himself yet. So you have to be realistic about what you can get, but also at the same time, you can still get really great guys. They might not have all the qualities that a woman will be looking for, like those 15 qualities or 20 qualities. So my advice to women is to, if you are someone who's having a hard time dating, if you're not attracting the kind of guys you want, maybe because you're going for the wrong guys, and you'd find there's a funny saying going around the internet. Women say, "I don't get it. We're all the great men." And then the answer is you put them in the friend zone.
Where do we go to find those guys in the friend zone? Some island somewhere. Yeah, that's awesome. I can so back up what you're saying because I see this in real time. Like, I've actually tested this out in my workshops where I'll put a picture of a woman or a man from a real account in Bumble, right? And just show one picture, and if they could throw tomatoes at the screen, they would be, "No way, I would never date that guy." And then I show another picture of the same guy. He's dressed better, has a little bit different stature of, like, what his qualities are, and they all back down. And they all, "Oh, no, I would totally swipe right," you know? And so I think you're right. Like, women also have a lot of women have been hurt, and so they're trying to protect themselves, and they see one little trigger and they'll like swipe left. And I think a lot of us are in fear, and I think maybe to put a button on it is there needs to be more of an openness, I think, with both sexes and giving each other chances. We both have responsibility and
Yeah.
approachability and likeness and attractiveness. um, Tripp, I could do this all day long with you, but I know I'm like looking at the clock, like, how did we get here? Of course we got here because it's you and I. Um, is there anything like you want to just like words of wisdom that you want to part with, and also let everyone know how to find you?
Yeah, totally. Uh, for the gentlemen who are listening, if any of this resonated with you and you're ready to take a big leap into finding an amazing girlfriend, and if you're not ready for a girlfriend, at least getting 5x more dates than you're getting right now, you can go to trippadvicecoaching.com and we can chat and we can help you and get you into a coaching program. If that's a big jump for you, you're not sure if you're ready, you're like, I don't know this Tripp guy that well, this is good, but I'm curious to hear more. Just check me out. I'm on all social media platforms. So if you're listening to this on a podcast, you can check out my podcast. It's called How to Talk to Girls. If you're watching this on YouTube or any other social media, just type in Tripp Advice and you can find me there.
He's everywhere. Any like
I'm
last words of
everywhere. And
you
and last
can't
words of
miss him.
wisdom. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, listen, I think if anyone's having a hard time dating, this is going to be pretty obvious, but I don't think I just want to hit maybe some of the stubborn people out there, men,
Yeah.
women, and everything in between. If you're having problems with dating, something has to change.
Mm.
So stop waiting for something to change outside of you. Start changing something within yourself, whatever that needs to be, whether it's the way that you're finding men or finding women, whether it's the way that you're attracting men or women, or whether it's the way you are feeling about yourself. So make a change and keep making changes, because in life there's a lot of dead ends and people usually give up when there's too many, but you just got to keep going if you want to have a great dating life and great life in general.
Beautiful. Of course. Tripp, thank you so much. I'm so glad we did this
Thank
finally.
you. I'm so glad. Thank you for finally having me. I loved it.
It was awesome. And thanks you joining me today. This has been the Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, of course, Kimmy Seltzer. And remember, you can build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. And if you want to know more, make sure you go to my site, kimmyseltzer.com. And if you're struggling with all of this stuff that we're talking about, your sexy confidence, attracting dates, hop on a call with Tripp, hop on a call with me. I mean, there's a ton of help you can get. It takes a village. I always say that. And we can strategize ways of mapping out a plan to do that. Just click the link you see in the show notes for my calendar if you want to book a call with me too. And who knows, that one call, no matter who you talk to, could change the entire course of your life. And remember, working on you is working on your dating life. That's all for now.